Hello again, I am Blunty, and in this squirt of videographic information dumping, I'm looking at the Nikon D800, which alongside the D4 forms Nikon's king of the hill pairing of professional snappers and well-hilled amateurs. Now, I'm not going to burn through a couple of minutes on this specs, even though this is one of those high-spec cameras that camera forum fanboys love to spend more time blindly arguing about than actually shooting with. Its main party piece and neon sign standout specification is the 36 megapixel full-frame imaging sensor, which is currently sitting as the unquestioned king of technical performance over on dxomark.com. In fact, it takes up both top slots thanks to the D800E variant. Aside from that, it's enough to say that it's built for the professional life. It's crazy tough, it's weather sealed, it has the usual newbie intimidatingly wide range of bells and whistles buried in its menus. The body is laid out in a familiar and unsurprising manner, so body swappers upgrading from older Nikon DSLRs don't have to spend much time relearning anything. Video shooters will love the headphone out and uncompromised Hdmi output, audio level setting and monitoring, and decent selection of useful video frame rate and resolution configurations. But hey, there are countless places online to go if all you want are the dry specifications. What matters is the end result, so let's take a look at some real world performance. First up, that crazy ass resolution isn't just a pretty number to put on the box, it really does properly resolve a serious amount of fine detail. So much so that your lens selection becomes even more important than it ever was. You'll really want to invest in top of the line lenses to actually make use of the detail resolving power here. The cheap stuff will work just fine, no worries, but you'll be wasting a lot of shiny new potential and may as well be shooting on an older model instead. In rapid-fire continuous servo mode, you'll only get between 4 and 6 frames per second depending on your setup, so it's perhaps not the best choice to action snappers like sports or wildlife, but you can get by with it serviceably if you need to on occasion. But this camera is much more at home for portraiture, studio and landscape work where you've got a little more time to get it right rather than the spray and pray high-speed auto-fire approach. Video coming straight out of the camera in its default setup is, frankly, a little bit on the soft side and quite flat looking, but that's pretty much what you want. This isn't for home movies and the like. This is for people who shoot and then color grade properly in post. Much more suitable for filmmakers, and for those purposes it's quite accommodating. Thanks to the resolution downsampling of that 36 megapixel chip to churn out 1080p video, you do occasionally have some issues with jaggies and the familiar artifacts, but they're actually quite well controlled overall. In what comes as no surprise, Nikon manages to maintain its reputation as low-light ninjas here. Shooting in the dark silence of 4 AM Tuesday morning was no challenge at all. I was clumping about, happily snapping off clean-looking frames without the encumbrance of carrying or setting up a tripod. Even in what to my own human eyes was a dank, dark, dreary train tunnel, the D800 extracted super crisp detail and a wonderful palette of colour. Shooting at the very high end of the ISO range will of course bring some noise with it, but at 36 megapixels, unless you're printing on massive signages or billboards, it's rarely going to be a real-world issue in most places. Another thing that high megapixel count comes in handy for is the built-in ability to switch to a cropped mode, from full-frame FX down to Nikon's APS-C size sensor crop, DX, and even a square format too. And switching between them can be done on the fly nice and easy. This is especially handy if you run out of space to foot zoom and need to get a little more reach out of your lens to get the framing right in camera rather than having to fiddle around and crop in post. And thanks to that big resolution, when you are using the DX crop mode, it's a minimal compromise as you're still getting a crisp, clean 15 megapixel image. The D800 with its pro-level feature set and wildly impressive raw sensor performance mean the only real limits you'll hit are your lenses and your own raw talent. And I've got to be honest here, it did exceed my own raw talent. There are other people out there doing much more impressive stuff with this camera than I was capable of doing. But that high resolution does come at a cost. Each raw file it churns onto your memory card is more than 50 megabytes, which maybe doesn't sound like much in this day and age of terabytes, but it adds up fast. So you'll need lots of fast storage while shooting and for your archives. The big files also mean your post-processing work will take a little bit longer than maybe you're used to, as the computer has to crunch through all that extra image data. But that said, even my little MacBook Air handled processing without much trouble, so even if you don't have the most beastly powerhouse PC, you'll still be okay. The huge image file size did once kick me in the ass pretty inconveniently during my test though, when I forgot to turn off raw image capture while shooting a time-lapse. I ran out of space well before my planned shot was halfway done. So plan carefully if you plan on using Nikon's very handy inbuilt intervalometer modes. But aside from that little gotcha, the D800 impressed me. To be honest, it's not my kind of camera. Yes, I just got done telling you all about how impressive it is, but I often shoot while wandering around hours on end fairly aimlessly, and the size and heft of the D800 and a lens or three make a photo walk mentality a little bit impractical. Right tool for the right job and all that. And for the things that this tool is especially right for, like studio portraiture, serious hang-it-in an art gallery, landscape shooting and the like, will mean it's a fairly niche product. But for those things that it's especially good at, man, it's hard to think of a better choice out there. Thanks for watching, I am Blunty, and I'll catch you next time.